Welcome back to the Big Boss Podcast. I'm Vasil Terapov.
I'm Ryan Heber.
And I'm Yedidsion.
Now, quickly, let's set the scene. November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy's motorcade is making its way through Dallas as he's riding in an open-top Lincoln Continental. Beside him, the First Lady. In front, Texas Governor John Connally. At 12:29, the motorcade turns past the Texas School Book Depository. At 12:30, 3 shots ring out. And at 1 p.m., John F. Kennedy is pronounced dead. The country is silent, and the questions begin. So, what were these 3 shots that ran out?
Okay, so the official story by Congress is that the first bullet that he shoots misses the car. The second bullet that he shoots, it goes through JFK's shoulder, then it goes through John Connally, the governor, and then it leaves his body, hits his wrist, and then leaves his wrist and hits his thigh, which if you count it is 7 wounds for 1 bullet, which is kind of insane. And then the third bullet hits John F. Kennedy. It removes a large portion of his brain, which he was dead basically once he got that wound.
Okay, and so the second bullet, which I believe was fired by Lee Harvey Oswald, was called the magic bullet. This was the officially government-accepted theory. However, people weren't so confident.
It doesn't really make sense, as Ryan Vasil described it. The magic bullet can't really have 7 wounds from just 1 bullet. So a lot of people have suspected that there was maybe 2 shooters in the scene. There's also a lot of people who heard 4 gunshots and not just 3. So it raised a lot of questions. And is there anything the government's trying to hide? And people have started to have a lot of suspicions and kind of try to figure out what really happened there. So if there's 2 shooters, there must be something organized.
Thus a conspiracy. What are your thoughts, Vasil?
Well, I think that 1 man is just a maniac, 2 is an organized crime. So we can start at a particular nightclub where Lee Harvey Oswald was being transported to the next prison, and before he could get to testify or explain his case,
Got shot by someone who had ties to the mafia. Now, it's a great question on why would they do that. Maybe they were trying to silence him. Maybe he was related to the mafia and they were trying to silence him because they were the ones orchestrating the whole thing with a second shooter. And he was also trying to kill some mafia members and have plans for that. So the mafia could definitely be out to get JFK. Are there any other ideas that came up?
well, JFK's policies against organized crime were a huge problem for the mafia, so that wouldn't be unreasonable. But one of the major events that was happening in history at the time was the Bay of Pigs invasion to attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro, which was organized by the CIA. And a lot of fallout came from that. First of all, people suspect that exiles that were angry at JFK for not being able to support them during the Bay of Pigs invasion could have plotted their revenge. Or Fidel Castro himself orchestrated in response to the assassination attempt. JFK was also trying to actively withdraw troops from Vietnam and reduce nuclear proliferation, so Pentagon officials are another suspect. And about 4 hours after JFK was officially announced dead, Lyndon B. Johnson took upon the presidency. So some people even suspect that Lyndon B. Johnson had his own hand in the killing. Finally, what is perhaps the most widely acclaimed theory is that the CIA was frustrated with John F. Kennedy, who, after the Bay of Pigs failure, basically said that he will be disbanding the CIA in a matter of weeks. So, Ryan, could you enlighten us? Why is the CIA under such heavy suspicion?
The CIA is under such heavy suspicion basically because of the investigation that followed being incredibly vague. So the government seemed to be motivated by a desire to give quick answers to the people to calm down the situation due to the Cold War going on. They didn't want escalation and people to be outraged. So the government seemed to be motivated to hide information, which is where the CIA comes in. There have been testimonies from members of the government that they were ordered to destroy documents, which is incredibly suspicious. And then also in another investigation by Congress, about 20 years later, they came to the conclusion that the CIA had withheld information as well, which is doubly so incredibly incriminating for the CIA. And as mentioned, because Lee Harvey Oswald had been shot and killed, there was no trial, which means the government could control all the information given to the people.
But why are the people putting all this blame on the CIA? Do they have anything to gain from this?
Well, the CIA was mad at JFK, right? Now, it looks like the CIA could do it because the CIA is really the government who withheld a lot of information from the people. So people are mad at the government, they're mad at the CIA, they don't exactly know what to do. As Ryan mentioned, there's been a lot of proof of CIA trying to withhold information, and the whole investigation the government ran wasn't very accurate. I mean, no real sense, because it was really quick, saying there's only one shooter, and they kind of just forgot about it until they tried to run the second investigation. And then they had a committee decide to have information. Some of it was released, some of it was not released yet, which is also kind of bringing a lot of questions of why are they taking so long to release all the information. So
It was incredibly suspicious because the information they did release didn't actually contradict the original claim, which begs the question, why didn't they release this originally?
Yeah, what benefit does the government have for hiding any of this, really?
So as I mentioned earlier, the government was trying to de-escalate things because of the Cold War, and they were worried about nuclear annihilation. But another motivation the government could possibly have that would dissuade them from investigating other theories is if they were to investigate too heavily into Cuba and then release the information, they would likely reveal the CIA's plots to, as we talked about, assassinate Fidel Castro, which would be terrible. So they had to hide the information about their operations in Cuba, which means they couldn't really investigate it very much.
So the whole thing was highly politically charged, and still we haven't gotten a clear answer. So let me ask you, as guest of the podcast, what do you think the truth is?
I believe it was two shooters, and probably the mafia. They seem to have a lot of motives, also trying to silence the whole operation. I genuinely think it was a two-shooter with the mafia trying to shoot JFK and succeeding.
And Ryan?
I'll be honest, I don't know what the truth is, but it's certainly not what Congress said originally. I got into it a little bit, but I could easily make another episode about the hundreds of more inconsistencies in their story. There are so many things. Like, LBJ said he didn't believe it, members of the committee said they didn't believe it, the guy who shot John Connolly said he didn't believe it. It was a very, very weak theory, and I definitely don't believe it.
I definitely agree with that. I think that the CIA was the most likely culprit of the whole scenario because we've had multiple people come out and say things about it. The New Orleans DA investigated CIA operatives. E. Howard Hunt, on his deathbed, told his son that there was a CIA plot to kill JFK. So I think that there is a truth hiding here. Why they killed him? Probably to stay together. After all, JFK did say that he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. And I'd be mad if someone said that about me, too. Thank you. That was the Big Boss Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you too.